All right, everybody, welcome in. This is Real Talk with Spoon and Puddin, episode 8. I'll be the one and only Big Spoon.
How does it be the pudding?
All right, the primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and share our thoughts and opinions. If and when we have proof and evidence on the topics it will be brought forth. This podcast does not constitute advice or services to anyone. Spoon and Puddin do not accept any responsibility or liability for our guests or anyone's comments or actions based on the material we talk about on this podcast. This podcast is for private and non-commercial use, and everyone should ascertain that the information we provide is correct and verified at all times. There shall be no adding to, editing, or reproduction of this podcast without prior written permission from Spoon and Puddin. You can reach us at realtalkwithspoonpuddin@gmail.com.
Okay, so now, last week you took the police thing, which made a real ruckus, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
A bit of a ruckus. So now we want to talk about the bank. Let's see. Since I don't have permission to use their name, I'll call them Bank FU. For anybody who isn't aware, they're located between the post office, Ace, Hardee's, and across the street from the school. You can't figure out their main headquarters by those locations for Portland, Tennessee. Well, just Google it. Google Ace in Portland, or post office in Portland, or Hardee's in Portland, and you'll pretty much figure out what bank sits between those three locations.
You say we're calling it FU Bank?
Yeah, Bank FU. Yeah,
Bank FU.
Bank FU. The reason our conversations last week, we were chatting about, I like talking about banks because I know how corrupt they are. They're the reason that your eggs are quote, $3 or getting there. Just simple economics and finance. But I'll start at the beginning of the story. I moved to Portland area in 2010, and my grandparents banked with this bank, and they had a loan with them. They basically added like 600 or 700 square foot to their house, and since their credit wasn't so great, they got this Bank FU's wonderful balloon loans. I'll call them Bank FU. Now hear feedback.
No, you're good.
Okay. But basically, so my grandparents were in these loans. My aunt currently is in one of these loans through Bank FU. To go the whole story, we had a family disagreement in 2012, and at the time she had a house with maybe I need to turn this down. At the time, she had a house that she owed like maybe 18,000. It was 6+ acres with a triple wide manufactured home on it, and basically she used that as collateral to get another house on some ill-given advice. This is starting in 2012. Here we are 10 years later. Long story short, the bank forced her to sell her manufactured home because she was having trouble making the payments because she's a 66-year-old lady today, kind of low budget, fixed income type situation. So she ended up selling the one thing of value that she owned. She ended up selling it. That was really valuable, and I'll get to that. But basically, she sold it to her grandson for a sweetheart price, and he ended up selling it for $120,000, which was pretty much what she owed on everything. He sold it in 2021, and it recently sold for $300,000. No, he sold it in 2020 or right at the beginning of 2021. House flippers bought it, fixed it up, sold it for $300K. So it sold for $300,000 last year, and my aunt is still in these Bank FU 3-year balloon things. Uh, Last Thanksgiving, my father and mother came up, and my parents went to the bank and asked about getting her in a conventional loan. The bank's, you know, up front, the bank acts like, oh, yes, yes, we can, but then they didn't do it. So now she's still stuck in these going nowhere 3-year balloons that Bank FU loves to sell their customers. They love to screw people. And it's for that I just think this small town corruption needs to. There's also a connection to the politics in Portland. Um, what was his name? Drew Jennings? Is that who it is?
Yeah, he sits on the council as our vice mayor, and he happens to be loan officer at Bank FU.
Yeah. So we got Bank FU loan officer Drew Jennings, who's also vice mayor, and then isn't he on a commission or
He
something?
sits. He sits on the. he sits on the board, and he's the vice mayor.
Mhm. But no, it bothers me in a lot of ways because my my aunt, who's 66 to now, sits in. She owes $48,000 on a house that the last time I looked it up on Zillow's showing like 180, and the bank acts like because of her credit they can't roll her into a conventional loan. You got to be shitting me in a lot of ways. The value is the house, it's the collateral, and these banks don't lose, and that's where I would never do any business with Farmers Bank. Oops, did I say them? Oh well. I'm just okay. That's my personal opinion. I wouldn't do business with Bank FU. Like to shout them out a little bit, just a little bit, because I wouldn't do business with them. But what was the? You want to speculate on the story with the other bank that sold off and told people to buy stock in Farmers? I don't know. That's
Well, most people in this town already know that Mr. Collins owned, I'm pretty sure, 100% stock in Volunteer State Bank. He
mm,
owned, he owned the whole kit and caboodle. Uh, but the rumors are, and I say rumors because I don't have the evidence or facts with me at this time to say for 100% sure that he told and insured all his kids to buy stock in Bank FU. And rumor is that most, if not all, own stock in Bank FU because when I called him Old Man Collins because he was the dad, granddad, whatever you want to say, before he left this
that's
world. He ended up selling, you know, all assets in Ball State Bank. Um, but that's another piece to the puzzle when you have uh, a powerful, wealthy player in the banking business that also uses that to their advantage with the political side of your city and your council and your chamber to control everything. And
yeah.
it's it used to be Mr. Collins, which his sons are not. I guess they're not wanting to be the same powerful political controlling person that he was, but he has a daughter that she's taken on that role.
There's when it comes to that, little the small towns that have things like that happen. Um, that shouldn't be, if Chick-fil-A or Steak and Shake or some business wants to come in, they shouldn't have to grease the hands of players in town. They should just if they're wanting to build a business in town, they should be allowed to. You know,
I agree with you. I hate to tell the people of this town that don't know and don't realize, but do care because we got a lot of people. It's not just this town; it's in the world that if it doesn't affect them and they can, we talked about it many times, go get their Starbucks coffee and their Nike shoes and their new iPhone. They don't really pay attention or care about anything else. But everybody that I see and we have conversations, or if you see on social media on these local, like hip Portland sites and stuff, they ask, why can't we get this and why can't we get that? And between the links between the city and the chamber and Bank FU, they have it cornered. None of these places that people want to come in is going to be allowed to come in because it's so controlled there. Uh, the sitting council and mayor and the chamber and Bank FU, they want Portland to grow, but they want it to grow at their level. So
yeah, they wanted to grow. It only grows at the level that they put their blessing on
and allow it to. Yes.
Yeah, if it's not blessed
they
by
have control of the loans, they have to have the control of the money, all that. And when you get your big time companies and corporations that want to come in here, they're not going to deal with Bank FU, right? They don't need to. They don't have to.
no, they've got a real bank or bigger money behind them, but it's the small, want to be monopolistic banks. There's two in town. It's kind of crazy that our town has two banks and one credit union. That's pretty pathetic. You go down to the big town nearest, Gallatin. How many banks are down there?
Oh my gosh, quite a few.
Yeah, because they're open to let businesses operate however they see fit. Instead of trying to put up barricades and walls and trip mines. But the reason I told the story about my aunt was because I wanted to segue into why it seems pertinent to me that we need a state bank. Um, and there's no reason that we, as a Tennessean, couldn't have it, or Kentuckian, or anybody. It's just a good idea to let the state, issue mortgages for people. Now, I'm not talking about banking like a checking account with them. I'm talking about strictly mortgage related and strictly related inside of the borders of the state, because the state would have a vested interest in keeping you in your house or working on getting you into a loan term that works for you. And if the house is the collateral, like for instance, my aunt who lives in a house that's 3, 4 times the value of what she owes, I don't believe a state government would say, "Oh, well, your credit's bad," because in the end, the collateral is the house.
Well, let's go back. Pause that for a second. Let's go back to Bank FU. Uh, the reason that they don't want to let your aunt out of the blue payment, even though her property and home is worth 3 or 4 times the value of what she owes, is because they make less money, right?
Oh, they make a ton of money.
I'm talking about if they changed it the way it would be the benefit of her, they would make a lot less money. Right now, every 3 years they get to screw her, right?
Every 3 years she has to either pay it off or start another 3-year contract. My father got the opportunity to look at the deal, and while looking at the deal, he seen it and said, "This is a screw job from hell," because literally just paying the minimum payment, and again, like I said, fixed income and all that, she pays $44 towards the principal every month. So after the course of 3 years, she's, paid $1,500 towards the principal, and then they have to reclose and write her a new loan. So she literally goes nowhere. And I think every 3 years,
and loan fees and application fees every 3 years.
Yeah, every 3 years she has to pay my dad seen it on the paperwork, and it was a $550 appraisal fee. You don't think that, you know,
You got to do the appraisal fee,
the appraisal
loan
fee
fee,
was $550 every 3 years. So I mean, there goes 1/3 of what she paid on the principal
right?
that gets rolled back onto it.
Then you take the application fee, the processing fee,
Yeah, all these fees, she ain't going nowhere.
the closing costs. So really, she's making no headway. That's what I'm
No.
saying. That's why Bank FU will not
Yeah, it
swap
has.
it
It
to
has.
conventional.
Well,
It has it has
they
nothing
love.
to do with
I'm saying they love the excuse of your credit isn't good enough, so that we can give you a regular style loan that even if it was a 10 or a 15-year conventional style loan, you can see daylight after 10 years because she's had dealing with these people for 10 years in this ordeal. Um, the 6 acres and manufactured home was on a conventional, um, but the new places aren't. And ill advice and bad poor decision making isn't an excuse, but after 10 years of Bank FU making a fortune off of her, there's no reason that they can't rewrite the wrong unless they just want to make money and strip money from the people. And that's why I was trying to segue into the state. I don't believe a state bank that's set up to issue mortgages would act like this. Um, the Me and Red, we had a long talk on this last week on Wednesday, and we were going back, and he said, "Well, where did what was the guy that was running for governor that talked about this?" And we found his name, and he's an Iranian, which most likely is probably why he probably never went nowhere. Uh, People act like they ain't racist, but they are. Um,
it's 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 unfortunate uh, that has to be like that because you would think at this in this country at this day and time in this world uh, we could see
we need the best ideas, is what we need.
well and you know I understand a lot of people say well there's a guy from Iran or Afghanistan they automatically put a label on him but you can't judge a book by the cover right.
Well, after me and Red researched him, his name was Fareed Kavari. Um, he got a master's in economics in 1973 in Hamburg, Germany. So the guy is actually educated. Probably back if you got a master's in '73, it probably meant something.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, he wasn't. You wasn't raised to say that you can say the. You can just pick your gender like these new colleges today. Yeah, these new colleges, you might as well just wipe your backside with their degree. Um, but basically, when my mother read that to me, I was like, "Holy cow, this makes too much sense." Because I remember when I had my mortgage in Florida, like $2,800 a year was interest. That's what the bank kept, and that was just I think I had a $96,000 mortgage or something. And if you look at your paperwork for your house and your property taxes, imagine the state keeping that $2,800 because I'm sure you know that you don't pay nowhere near that in property taxes, do you?
oh no
No, but
uh,
imagine,
I think between county and city taxes I pay 1,500 somewhere around there a year.
see, imagine your mortgage being through your state, and then the interest on the money is kept by the state, and then they would probably have more money than they could shake a stick at, and then wouldn't even have to charge you property taxes anymore. You know.
And in that sequence, you ought to have better roads, better infrastructure.
Oh gosh, yeah, we need some roads.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
our infrastructure is it's pitiful.
Oh, it's shoddy. It's just, I mean, potholes everywhere, and it's horrible. But I mean, what I'm saying is I know where I'm at. I think the property taxes are around 800, but I don't have the city like you got. Um,
Yeah, whatever the county is, you might as well double it because the city's going to be closer, or sometimes even more, depending on what you got.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if you ballpark it and you got people that are property taxes, well, if somebody has a $200,000 loan or $300,000 loan, the amount of interest that they're paying is astounding to, anything. But why not let the state hold it? Because if you understand finance and you follow a lot of this stuff, it's pretty simple to see that banks don't lend you other people's money anymore. They don't do that. They have a charter, and that charter basically gives them a printing press. All these mortgages, and people I'm sure have heard the mortgage-backed securities, and it's all a slush fund. And basically, the bank loans my aunt, you know, money to go get a house, and then they send that to a slush fund back at the Treasury at the Federal Reserve, which has nothing to do with federal and reserves. No, they got a printing press, is what they got, and they have printed into this inflation that people just people will find out soon. It's starting to rear its ugly head. Um, but what's going on is, there's no reason in the world. Let's say that the state of Tennessee was to create this fictional bank, and then my aunt said, "Well, I would like to have a conventional mortgage, please, on 15 or 30 year, pick whatever time frame you want." Basically, the state would issue a check to Bank FU, which would get rid of the credit. The credit would still be there because the state would go to the Federal Reserve and get the 48K, and then they would hand it to Bank FU, which would clear that cancel. It would just be a canceling out. But imagine if the benefit of banking, of having your mortgage through the state, there's no property tax, or all property taxes throughout every state in this country just went away because now we have a branch of the state that's going to lend money on property. And again, the property is within inside the borders of the state, so it just makes sense. Because in the
So,
end, who loses out? The state's not going to lose out.
what in a sense, uh, with the state bank that we've talked about off the air and now on, it's pretty much going to be like a credit union for the people
Oh, the
representing the
state.
state.
Similar, yes. Not,
Uh,
not like I said. Do. Would I say that a state bank should be dabbling in cars? No. Credit cards? No.
no, I'm talking about
Mortgages,
just for
mortgage only.
real estate purposes.
Yeah, just real estate, just mortgages inside of because we can expand the vision. And if you're a visionary and you can see this, the idea is, let's say you have $150,000 property and you've lived in it for 8 years and you paid a little extra, you're down to 100K, and then you go to the state and you're like, "Hey, I want to build a garage on my property," and the state says, "Well, sure, that's going to increase the value of your property." You have a contractor in the state, so you've got a contractor in the state who agrees to build you this garage, building, barn, whatever. They agree for 20, 30K. The bank sees, well, yeah, you've got equity in your house. Doesn't mean the state needs to, get onto the closing costs and all that. They're the state. They shouldn't have to ask permission or have appraisals. They could just send a check to a state contractor who would then come out and increase the value of their property for 20, 30K, whatever it costs. Uh, it's money that is creating jobs inside of the state. It's increasing the property value where the state's, you already got equity in your property anyway. So,
Well, in that sense, if it say it was you had it down to 100,000 and you wanted to build your garage, and say it was going to cost you 20, but the value of your home was like say 180. The state's not going to give you all the problems that a bank would.
oh no,
And
it wouldn't.
they're going to value your home and go, oh, it's worth 180. You want to borrow 20, and it's going to up to 20. So if they give you 20 and up your loan to 120 after the garage is done. Now your home's worth 200,000. They hadn't lost anything.
No,
All
they
they
ain't.
done is gain.
No, because they still hold the title. They have all the power.
It's the same with the bank, except with the bank, they're going to make you pay closing costs, an application fee, and another appraisal. You got to redo all the paperwork, more interest. And with the bank, state bank, all they're going to do is go, "Oh yeah, you're worth well enough. Here's your money."
Yeah, well, like I said, if you didn't want to pull any cash out, it's not like the state would care. It'd just be like, oh, what's the name? You show us to give the contract from the contractor to the state, and then they issue the check to the contractor. Or they could extend the line of credit to the contractor to get it done because some contractors don't do on a flat rate because prices could fluctuate. But again, if you've got $50,000, $80,000 equity in your property, as long as you don't surpass that, and the state knows that, well, once he's done with this, the value of the property is just going to go up. I mean, it's a win all the way around. Not only now you've got jobs, you've got ease. Uh, you know, uh, Told you about Mikey was talking about refinancing his home, and I told him, I said, you need to look at that paperwork closely because they're going to probably charge you, $5,000 to $7,000 in closing costs just to refi, just to pull your equity out, and that's ridiculous. There's no reason for that. And he was going to refi it with um, with his current lender.
What did you say?
No, I didn't know you had it muted.
Yeah, I had you muted. I got the boss talking to me for a second.
Oh, yeah, okay. But no, he was just going to refi it with his current lender, and it wasn't like anything was changing hands. And that's where I was like, okay. I said, you got to watch this. I said, that's just you're just throwing money away when you do that. Okay, I hear you talking to her. Uh-huh. I'll just pick it on you.
I say I had you muted.
I know you did. We can see you. We can see you look like a Chinese film. Your mouth's a little bit.
Well, you know how it is when the boss gives you margin orders. You got to.
Oh no! I thought you was the boss.
I am 99% of the time when she's asleep.
Oh, okay. Oh my! But no, it just when there's a good idea and it makes sense, there's no reason that people shouldn't pursue it. And again, the guy being an Iranian immigrant, no people weren't going to take his idea. I mean, all I had to do was hear it, and then I could see the visionary aspect of it. Where, wow, everyone in a state can no longer pay property taxes. That if you lived in a city, well, they could get a cut of the percentage rate.
Well,
You know,
you know, with this idea, you would have to take it.
we had to take it to Nashville.
Mike said both of you look like you're about to pass out. Well, Mike, I worked all night, so I'm tired. Puddin there, he's in Jacksonville in the sunshine. He ain't got no excuse. But say you take this to your great representative William Lambert. How far do you think that's going to make it?
Ain't gonna go nowhere. Well, he's part of the corruption problem, isn't he?
Yeah. I feel like he is. I don't know. I don't know about on that side. I don't know if you took him an idea like that or not. How far it would go. I would like to think he would. It would go somewhere, but Marcia
He's the
Blackburn.
Republican. He's the Republican majority leader,
Yep.
or whatever. He's been in office for 10 years, and politicians are like diapers. You need to change them frequently.
I agree.
Where did you say he does all his eating when he's in the Portland locale? At the Five Chefs.
Well, I didn't say that's where he does all his eating, but the only one that I know, I don't know how you say it, but I guess, endorses a place to eat in the Portland area that I know of is Five Chefs. And the only one that I know for a fact, I'll say for a fact, that I'm pretty sure for a fact, uh, that Miss Collins, or Miss Russell, I guess, she's a Collins, the owner of Five Chefs, the only politician that I know of that she donates to is William Landis. So, I mean, like I said last week, you got sitting councilman, Vice Mayor Drew Jennings, who's a loan officer at Farmers Bank, uh, working with the city and Farmers Bank. They they have the all the area cornered to where all these big businesses don't want to come in. Like Walmart. Uh, it was highly rumored back when Walmart wanted to build out here on 52 that Collins and the city had a whole lot to do with them not coming in.
Over
Uh,
near the interstate, maybe,
well, between the interstate
and
and
downtown.
Portland, yeah, after they built the new 52,
Well, I
and
mean,
they tried to bully them into what they wanted to, and you know how Walmart is. Walmart, we'll just go somewhere else. They just want a few miles up the road. But what I'm saying is, you got all the city and Farmers Bank, and you got people on the council that work for Farmers Bank and the chamber. They all control what goes on in the city, and they got the market cornered where you're never gonna. Like I said, the people want, I want Chick-fil-A, I want this and that. You might, for chance, might be able to get one of something you want, but I highly doubt that. But to get all these places you want to come in here and go through Bank FU and be controlled by the city and being dictated to what they're going to do, no, they're not going to do that. They don't need money for Bank FU. They don't need the approval of Bank FU, right? So when they come in here and even look and evaluate how this town is run and operates,
oh, it's a
they just
deterrent.
they just they just pack up and turn around and go the opposite direction, right? And
No, like, oh no, I don't want to deal with Boss Hog, you
right,
know. And last week we talked about Roscoe P. Coltrane, you know.
yeah,
I mean, in some ways, that's even relevant, isn't it? Was it? What was his name? Best. Uh, he's from
he
Portland,
talk,
ain't he?
he talk about
Roscoe.
no, not Roscoe wasn't. I don't think.
Yeah, I
Maybe it
think he
was.
was. I think he was. Uh,
Uh, but that, I mean, pretty much that is Portland in a nutshell. Except for you've stepped up a little more in the technology age, right?
yeah.
You
Well,
got
we've
your
stepped up.
you got your crooked cop, you got your crooked politician, your banker, crooked banker. I mean that's Portland in a nutshell. I mean, I don't care if that pisses people off or not, or they're not woke enough to realize.
No, they don't. The thing is, they're so happy with lining their own pockets that they could care less about doing what's right.
Well, yeah, and
And
that's
it's
and that's the major that's the major problem with why this town, under its current regime,
it's not going
I'm
to
going
go
to point
nowhere.
out, with how it is run and operated, with all the connections that stay tied together, that controls everything. This town will never
Except
blossom and it reaches potential to what it should
until the people say enough.
until the people say enough is enough. We're not going to
We
let
need
this
to
be
go in a new
controlled
direction.
by a handful of people. We're not going to allow the corruption anymore. We're going to step up and we're going to take this over. We're going to kick all these crooked people to the curb and keep them out of the operations that run into our city, and let it blossom into where these companies and corporations are fighting to come here. People are
Oh yeah.
wanting to come here. This is going to be a destination people want to come.
Well,
You
right.
know,
Well, right now,
the
the,
strawberry festival we have, which is fixed gum, it's big every year. But me and other people's talk, it's not what it used to be. All right, we don't have enough strawberry farms in this area right now to even call it a strawberry capital anymore, right?
Well, what, like speaking on that, what I do notice about this town is uh, they act like a bunch of whores if you're a business that's going to be a warehouse, which is great. It gets people, um, decent wages, plenty of jobs to work at. But then they say, "Oh no, 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 we Starbucks, ha, you stay out of here," you know.
Which I'm glad I
Um,
don't like Starbucks.
huh?
I said, which I'm glad I don't like Starbucks.
I mean, hey, we got a Dunkin', but it came into a gas station, you know.
In that station, there's been several different things. Like a long time ago, we had a Taco Bell in there. Nothing ever lasts. We had a Burger King. It didn't last.
Look, the vision of the current regime and the direction of the town is more or less, hey, we're going to give you a place where you can make a lot of money, but guess what? You've got to drive to another town where you can actually go spend and enjoy it, and that's not very visionary
Well,
in no way.
that's Portland in a nutshell. That's how it's been. When I go out to dinner or lunch or something, I try to go to places um,
Mhm.
here in town that are locally owned. I try to, but that stuff gets old, you know. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to go shopping, you can go, 10 minutes up the road across state line and pay less taxes overall, no taxes on your food, and cheaper prices. Why am I going to go spend my money at Food Line?
See, that
At
was
least the
when I
heroes.
but when I first moved up to Portland and I went to buy groceries and seen that, I was like, why are you taxing me on my groceries? Oh, that's everyone's. I was like, what? Tennessee taxes you, and in some ways, you don't have a right if it's taxed. Period. Uh, the T Rex Arms, uh, they got in with a state rep a few years back, and they went to the Tennessee Annotated Code, and they figured out how to get rid of that. If you're a gun enthusiast in Tennessee, you know that back in the day there used to be that little 10-cent bingo sticker on your box of ammunition. Uh, YouTube channel T Rex Arms, you can look him up. He has a whole video on this, like a 40-minute video. So he got a state rep, and then they looked at Tennessee Annotated Code. And when they looked at this, they looked at it along the lines of, well, you have a right to the Second Amendment. But if we're taxing you on ammunition, then we're taxing your right, and we shouldn't be allowed to tax your right. I believe everyone watching would believe that they have a right to life, that the state of Tennessee wants to tax your food that you need to eat to live.
Everybody should have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of
Oh,
happiness.
yes, I believe very much.
And
Huge, hugely
once the
Jeffrey.
government oversteps their bounds, which they have in millions
Oh,
of cases,
they're habitual line steppers on everything.
and they start taxing you to death, what they're telling you is you could be free, but you have to pay for it, right? If
Yeah,
you want
well,
to go fishing, you got to have a license. You're free to go fishing, but you got to pay for that freedom.
you got to pay for that privilege.
Yeah,
It's not a right if
you
it's
could
if
drive a
you
car,
got to
but
pay for the
you got
privilege.
to come pay us to get your license and take this test, and then you're paying for that privilege, right? Uh, the same thing with hunting.
But it's to me watching that video about the bingo sticker and the 10-cent thing. I sit there and I think, wow, it's they were able to pull that off because of your right, but nobody yet has been able to tell the state of Tennessee to stop taxing your groceries. That's amazing because you have a right to life, then they shouldn't have a right to tax your ability to maintain it. And it's crazy because, like you said, Kentucky, where I'm originally from, Florida, no, your groceries are not taxed. There is no sales tax on your
and
groceries.
it correct me if I'm wrong here, Puddin. That was one of the biggest reasons why we had the Civil War, because
Well, yes, it was.
the North was taxing the crap out of the South, but
Yes,
they didn't want it in return coming back to them.
well, when the South would order uh, plows or discs or some of the heavy farming machinery from the north. They tried to impose import taxes on the goods coming south, and the north said, "Oh, if you're going to put taxes on our stuff coming to your state so you can farm, well, we're not going to
What's up,
send you our stuff."
Richard?
But again, you've got
But
the
what I'm
goods
getting at,
coming from the south.
do you see any difference in today
What?
and then?
Oh, there's a lot of difference. There's a lot more taxes and a lot more duties imposed, that hidden charges that people don't see. You know, uh,
This is
I've
this is this is one thing that drives me crazy, right? Is if you, I don't know if you've noticed, because you probably don't go out to dinner as much as I do or lunch, but you go to these places, uh, whether it's a convenience store or it's restaurants, especially these local ones, they want to charge you for using your debit card. You know, they have a fee on the machine.
well, again, right back, rolling it right back to the banking. If you bank with Bank FU and they gave you a debit card, every time you swipe it, they're getting 2 to 3% or 1%. Probably one of the places that pays the least in those fees are those big giants like Walmart, because they have the financial clout to say, no, we're not paying 3%. But the little small merchant who
Well,
gets a credit card machine, when
there's
you buy
many.
something from him,
There, there's
3% of that purchase goes to the bank.
well, there's several people, but there's a few in particular that say never use the debit. I'm one, I use the debit card a lot, but they tell you never use the debit card. Use a credit card. Why are you using your money and paying the fees on your debit? Use the credit card. Use their money. Use the bank's money. And then at the end of the month, pay it off before the interest hits. And every month do that. And some I've been doing a lot more here lately, like paying my electric bill and all
The
my
banks,
credit card, and then
the
paying
bank,
my credit card.
but the bank wins either ways, man. I mean, you use their credit card or you use your debit card. The merchant is at their mercy because they put that machine in. It's just like Top Hog, for instance, down there in Gallatin, cash only. They, cash or check only, because they're not charged fees. And I mean, that's
I would
inconvenient.
I would much rather go to a place like that. It was cash or check only. To go to a place and you eat, and then you go to pay with your debit card because it's not advertised before, and it's like, oh, it's going to be 3% extra on this
You know,
purchase because you're using the card. Why
I
didn't you have that listed on
understand,
your door? And if you
but
had, I would have turned around and went and got cash.
if you're, if you, okay, Mr. Spoon, let's say you had the sub shop, you know, do you could either secretly jack up your prices 3% on the menu to cover it, charge the 3% when they use the card, or just eat the fee. Who wants to eat that fee?
Well,
Because
me as a business owner, if I chose to use that machine to help the customer pay for their meals and to draw more customers because they have more options of paying, personally, I would eat the fee. That's just me.
well, you could,
Because I'm not a money hungry, greedy person, right?
no,
And I understand. I'm not saying all business people are. Uh,
but no, the business people. I don't think business people are money hungry, greedy people. I think they're trying to live within the bounds and not be beholden to pay those fees. I mean, it would be better. Like, imagine a place that had the 3% in the menu price, but then they told you 3% cash discount. You know, then
I
you
would,
have a choice. You know,
yeah, I could deal with that.
you know. Uh,
What I'm
but that's
saying
what.
is, why do you trap your customers? Number one, without letting them know up front before they sit down to order that meal, and two, why is it so the fee so different at different places? Because the number one problem I have, just like those cameras they put up at traffic lights, those are not owned by this country. They're owned by a different country.
The Those technically are. I mean, to me, they're very illegal
Well,
because
they are illegal. But I was just making that point. Like those 99% of those machines come from countries like Switzerland or Sweden. The same with the cameras that they put up the red lights. And here's another issue: the state of Tennessee finally, after like 4 or 5 years, we voted out emission testings. They finally did away with it, right? I guess they
Finally,
were trying to wear their equipment out. So in January this year, we no longer have to take our car through emission testings. So
the only thing I've seen, Mr. William Lambert boast and brag about, but basically it was passed how many years ago?
it's 2017 when it was voted
Yeah,
out.
it's like, oh, so you voted it out in 2017, but it took you till 22 to close it.
Right. But what I'm
You
getting
know,
at is they issued all new tags this year because the emission's gone, right? And they're blue tags with white lettering. So now they're wanting everybody, telling everybody they're going to have to get new tags because the red light or the cameras at the red lights and stuff can't read the car tags. They issue tickets. So now they want to give you new tags at the, you know, who are these smart people that's running our state?
they're not
Get back to
smart.
the state level, you
Look,
know?
go to George Carlin where he said, "Do you think these politicians are anything other than people from the citizenry? Garbage in, garbage out."
Yeah,
The
but
people that
but they don't have any common sense. It's just like with these big companies. They get these people that have these college degrees, i.e., William Lambert, that have these book smarts, and they get into
they don't got a
politics,
horse sense. They got
and
no horse sense.
no common sense, no street smarts. You take people from different walks of life. This is the way I think our country should be run. You got truck drivers, you got nurses, doctors, firefighters, you know, everybody you mix together as your House and Senate running the country, right? You don't have the lifelong politicians, and you have ideas from every different stage of what makes this country run. Okay,
But
you don't
where
have
I'm
just strictly lawyers or politicians or whatever you
yeah,
want to say.
look at the wonderful bang up job that our lawyers have done with how wonderful our country is. The lawyer should be the last thing you should be sending towards the state or the government. He's the last person that deserves that.
Well, I
Uh,
understand, but what I'm saying is, say you had a 500 person House and Senate, which is I think it's 535, right?
that's in federal, yes.
Yeah, I'm talking
530
about federal. Yeah, federal. 535.
435 in the Congress and 100 in the Senate with the vice president as the
Right. So
tiebreaker.
so if you took 535 people from around this country and uh,
Different backgrounds.
different backgrounds, different jobs, different operations, and you mix them together from, you take doctors and
Oh,
nurses and firefighters and police and farmers and truck drivers and
don't
you
talk
throw
about.
and you throw them and say, I'm talking about common people. I'm not talking
No,
about rich folks. I'm talking
no,
about common people and
I
say
understand.
it's your 4 years to run the country, right? And then
See,
that 4 years, in that four
you want
years,
to
you're picking 535 more from different walks of life. Well, let's not say that. Let's say half, okay? Because you need to leave the other half in there for 2 years to help the new ones coming in, and they would phase out, and you would have half coming in. Every 2 years, you would have half that 535 leaving, and the other half coming in, right?
But I
And
mean, what I'm saying about our technology is there's no reason in the world that we need these people there anymore anyway.
no, I mean, what we're doing right here, there's no reason that we're paying the cost to fly these people from whatever state they live in,
Or their
represent.
families on vacations to,
That's like Pelosi
exotic
when she
places.
loaded up 60 people in the plane was going to take off.
Yeah.
How many times do you think that happens and still happens that nobody says anything about? They don't need 535 people or 500 people or 400 people in one room in Washington making a decision on anything. Get on
Especially
your
lawyers.
laptop, get on StreamYard, get on Zoom, whatever, and have your
It's
meeting.
no, I mean, as a person who considers himself a bit of a visionary, like to sit there and look at a state bank prospect, to look at your state rep as being able to have, say, a state app on your phone and you have a voting number for the state where the bills could come to you in, layman terms. This is what this bill does, and then the people should be able to tell him how to vote. If we're going to continue to play this charade of let's have a state rep or a congressman. There's no reason in the world that you couldn't, tell your representative how to vote if we need that buffer anymore. Technology is far advanced. I mean, a lot of people don't look at the let's look at the you have the elections in November, but people don't take office till January. There's, most people don't think about the reason that is. The reason in the classical sense of the term was if you were as a representative from Missouri and say 1800 who won Congress, you had to get ready to move to DC. So people don't look at the travel. That's kind of what that's about. It's more or less it's a buffer window for people
The
to make it
transition.
into office.
Yeah.
Yeah, today when like say November 2nd in the elections, if uh the house flipped, there's no reason that today with airplanes, there's no reason that November 3rd the new Congress isn't sworn in. This lame duck stuff needs to go away.
I think one day would be too much, but it should be
It's
shorter
possible.
than the what 9 or 10 weeks that it is. Uh, I
No,
would say if you have elections on November 2nd, November 3rd,
if
oh, later December 1, you're sworn in, right?
what whether or not the new Congress is sworn in on the 3rd or not, if the second the people say Pelosi, you're fired, or the
Oh, I've been waiting to
people
hear those
say
words for a long time.
you get what I'm saying. If the second all of a sudden Marsha Blackburn, you're fired, or whoever insert their name, you're fired. That's basically think of any other job where you've been fired by your employers, which are the people. Again, we got to keep up the smoke and mirrors charade. What job does someone get fired from and then continues to work there for another 2 months plus? No.
Well, we'll take it like this way: what other job besides a politician on the federal level can you work? I think it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe. I can't remember exactly what it is in
It's
that area.
January. Your January 3rd is when the Congress goes in. So the voting is on
Yeah, but what I'm
November
saying
2nd.
is they could work whatever the short time is. I think it's 2 to 3 months. Let's just say 3 months. What job can you work at for 90 days, get
After
fired, lose your seat, and draw a pension for the rest of your life? Huh?
no, I'm just saying what job allows you once you've been fired by your bosses. Again, the charade that I speak of.
You can't.
No,
There's a reason you got
you can
fired.
still vote on a pet project to maneuver federal funds back to, you know, San Fran weirdo and uh, build a bridge in your honor. You know, well, what? No, 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 no. That's absolutely ridiculous. If if that person was fired on November 2nd, they no longer are employed. That should be the
Well,
way it is.
well,
And
they're not really fired. On, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but say the election's on November 2nd, and
if if
whoever
Congress needs
wins,
to convene, okay, well, how about there's two different perceptions to look at. If Congress needs to convene and we need to do if it needs to be January 3rd, then why not January 2nd or January 1st be election day?
because you got to look at like some of these people that are in when the new ones get elected, some of them are retiring or they're not running again, right? So they're not really being fired; they're stepping out or they're retiring.
Maybe you step
Uh,
out, but once you step out, once the election's over, you know,
but
giving them control.
I do agree that the term should be shorter, and if Congress needs to convene, the new elected ones should be there.
Well,
They should be the ones.
it's not like they can't vote from their phone the very next day.
Oh, I
You know,
agree, but another thing we got to work on because these laws and everything they pass with 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 pages is ludicrous. Not one politician sits and reads all those pages. And it's just like with these stimulus packages that a lot of Americans were all for, me and you were totally against. This wasn't a stimulus package for the
No,
people.
it was
It
printing
was
the
for
money.
well that, and it was hiding where all the other money was going, right? And
Oh
then
yeah, no,
then I heard, well, we might be getting a new stimulus package because the gas price went. I'm like, Jesus Christ, just go ahead and eliminate the dollar now. Stop printing money.
no, no. Well, again, the devilish part of the Federal Reserve is you could go back to the Rockefeller quote: "If you give me control of a country's money, I care not who makes the law."
Well,
And that's what
exactly.
the Federal Reserve's got. They don't care.
Well,
And
the same with the quote. I don't care. What do you say? All they care about is who counts the votes.
oh yeah, that was Stalin. Uh,
Yeah, Stalin.
yeah, he
Uh,
said, "I don't care who you vote for. I just care who counts it."
exactly. Um, but with your idea of the state bank, how is that going to coexist with the Federal Reserve? Because we all know you don't
I don't
mess.
think. Well, I could care less about the Federal Reserve. They need to have their charter revoked.
I understand, but I know that, and but I'm saying is just like JFK was the last president that I think was going to be a great one. As soon as he was
I think it
rumoring
was
about shutting down the
one
Federal
one. What was it? I believe it was Executive Order 11110 or something. They wanted he wanted the coinage printed in actual or minted in silver, and that was one of the some people's. Everybody says conspiracy like it's a bad thing anymore. No, it's not. You should probably look into some of it because
Well, what they say conspiracy, I say realistic people that's giving you facts. That's what I say.
people who are researched and trying to
Yes,
expose, hey, this is most likely what happened and occurred. That
it's just like this deal we talked about last week, the locally with the officers and the corruption.
hmm
I've heard rumors that from people that other people that's in higher positions in the city and stuff saying, well, what they were talking about was not factual. It's like, uh,
pull that
well,
paper up. You got it.
I do believe this is printed on city paper. It
Oh,
says
let's see. What does that say?
Portland Police Department Criminal Investigation Internal Investigation Division. See this?
Oh,
Uh,
who's that? Who's that for?
oh,
One of
this is
the
for
one of the aldermans?
uh, it's for anybody
No, I
that
mean aldermans
question.
and mayors who say that it wasn't a factual
I mean, I don't
statement.
know. I'm not going to state who said or who didn't.
I didn't say who said anything. I said, but
Okay,
there's
I'm just saying. This is page one. It's 4 pages. All right.
oh yeah, we listened to 20,
All right.
30 minutes.
And here's something else for you. I'll show you. Oh, if I can find it. I have it, but can I find it? I ain't gonna show you that. We don't want to tell nobody that yet.
Oh, you
I
not gonna.
almost, I
You're still waiting on your.
almost showed my hand too early there, pudding.
Oh,
But
okay. No, I mean I'm saying
but
you're waiting for
here's
your freedom of information.
yeah, here's another. This is here's the paper that I wrote out. But the FOIA request, which our city calls it open request. I got a whole sheet in waiting on information to see. We'll get quite a bit of it back, but some of it they may say they don't have or they didn't see us. But uh, some of you people that like to watch our podcasts or or certain ones that phase in
We're
and
only
out,
look,
depending on
yeah,
what we're talking about. We're going to have some really, really great podcasts coming up. And then we can have some that it's probably not quite the entertaining to some or useful information or controversial information. So, but I hope y'all stick with us because you got to take the good with the bad. And I think we're always good, but sometimes we're just a little bit better.
well, we haven't gotten into the funny stuff, but I mean in a lot of ways it you
That
know
yeah, that'll come.
those are usually
We have our times when we're putting our little our sayings and memes up and then start. But we'll have some of those.
I know we've kind of went in a direction of being political, but it's, to me, in a way, I don't really care for politics. I know you don't, Spoon, but it to me it just comes down to what are we going to do? How are we going to make things better? We just want a better world. You know, I think everybody should want that in the end.
Exactly. And me and you've debated,
Oh,
we,
we've
we, we,
debated. We've had our
we
religious topics. You know,
we've debated, like, we want to change stuff on the federal level, and
oh, we need to go to it's going
you
to have to
more
be.
than I want to go and stay there. But me for certain, and I think you've come a little bit of saying we got to start a little bit local,
Start
and
somewhere.
yeah, because we both know we're not going to change. Two guys on a podcast is not going to change anything on the federal level, right?
No.
But two guys on a podcast and doing research and talking to people and bringing evidence and facts, we might be able to change things on the local level, right? Then when you change things on the local level, then we can move to county, state, and just
Local,
move
county,
on from there.
state. Yeah, well, again,
I-
look, as much as I thought, you know, Cheeto Man, Orange Man bad.
Orange man bad, brown man better.
The one thing I can give him credit on is he didn't take a salary. You know, I can give him credit on that. I can't credit him for spending almost as much as Obama in half the time.
Yeah.
The veto the veto pen on the CARES Act and all that, they should have come out. Nope, 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 nope. Ain't
Yeah.
going by here.
Well, he said he was going to. He said he was going to.
I know, no. But what I'm saying is just that's not sound money. That's not sound money. It's inflating the money. For me, it goes back to Congress and Senate. If you want to pass it, you get a super majority, and y'all pass it, or it doesn't have to come to my desk. I'm not putting my stamp on it.
And as much as I was not a Trump supporter,
I would have been a huge supporter had he.
He had every. I'm telling you, I don't hate Trump, and I like some of the things he did. He had every opportunity to win me over, because I would say if he done this and this and this, some of the things he said he would do or things I feel like he should do, I'm with him. And he done the exact opposite every time. Just like me, you talked about January 6th. He was a big part of that. And they're arresting people left and right every day. When me and you've talked about, he should have pardoned the people that they did arrest.
But trespassing in a building, what they were taxed to
pay in a public building. And a lot of people say, well, that's a federal building. It's a taxpayer-funded building. The people own that building. All right?
They're trespassing. No.
There's no such thing as trespassing unless you're completing a criminal act. All right?
If you're BLM and you want to take 4 blocks of downtown Seattle,
no, they don't want to talk about that. They want to be realistic now.
Yeah, it's still not the.
And this is not a race. This is not a race issue. This is a what I call a hate terroristic group issue, right? Because I don't care if you're the Federal Reserve, BLM, the Proud Good Old Boys. All those to me are hate groups. Some list them as terrorist groups, Antifa, all that. This has nothing to do with race, right? I love everybody. I don't care what size you are, what color you are, what country you come from. It's all about how you treat people and how you act that defines the person you are. Not the color of your eyes, not the color of your skin, not the size of you. It's all in your heart. It's how you treat people.
Doing to others.
But Trump was a big part of what happened January 6th. I mean, you talk about it. He was on his way out the door, and he could have pardoned.
He could have pardoned anyone arrested for the so-called lie.
And he could have blocked the rest of them from being arrested. Now, any of them that broke windows or had any kind of destruction like the BLM has and all that,
that's property damage is different.
They should be prosecuted.
That's property
damage. Simply entering a federal, state, or local building that's taxpayer
being on the ground
is not a crime. Okay? No. Carrying a weapon onto the grounds is not a crime.
Not if
Carrying a
there's a
weapon
Second
into
Amendment
a
that means anything.
carrying a weapon into a federal building that has a law saying you cannot, even though me and you both agree it's unconstitutional, it is a law. Okay, that's going to be a borderline topic. Uh, and that goes back to that story I was telling you about the school system, right? The schools, the people own those, right?
Supposedly.
Supposedly. But they want to set
People.
laws saying only police officers are allowed to carry weapons on school grounds.
Oh, you're talking. I know what you're talking about.
About the mother, they had a threat. The mother, she wore her vest. She had his permit. She was armed. Nobody could see it. You could tell the bulge and stuff. And they went to the school. You know, they were having a party with her. The school called the police because they could see the bulge and they come and they arrest her. They charge her with a felony. She's going to be stripped of her rights. She's probably going to spend some time in jail. And the only thing she did was try to protect her child. You tell me why and how is that a crime?
It's not.
Do you trust you and your wife or me and my wife to protect our children? Or do you protect one officer at a school to protect 400 or 500?
Well, it depends. Or you're not settling with the Epstein's, are you?
No. it, and I'm glad you said that because I want people to get on board with the real problems in this country. All right.
There's a bunch of them.
Well, let's go back to the race thing because it's not a race thing. Let's not talk about what white people did because I didn't do anything to anybody to a different race 100 years ago. Let's talk about what your government does. Let's talk about the sex trafficking of our children. Let's talk about the real issues. Let's end those real issues. Slavery is 100% alive today in this country. All right. And I'm not talking about like we're slaves to our company and to our government. I'm talking about your children are being abducted and sold into child sex slaves.
And some of them voluntarily go that way too, though. I mean, we can't X out the volunteers.
I'm talking about children. I'm not talking about.
I know. I'm saying,
that, runaway teenagers that want to do that.
I'm talking about 18-year-olds that parents were just POSs, and then they just say,
I understand that.
Whatever.
But it seems like this country, and maybe the whole world's that way. I don't know. They want to ignore the true problems and worry about things that happened 100 years ago or 50 years ago. And I'm not making light of that, right? What happened there was a disgrace. It should never been done. You cannot go back and repay anyone for what they went through. The same thing with the Jewish people and Hitler. Over the whole history of the world, there's always been slaves, right? From Romans to Egyptians to Scottish to Africa,
even
to America.
It's an old world problem, and it still exists today. And you love your iPhones and your Apple stuff, but Foxconn, guess what? That's a slave camp in a lot of ways.
And I'm with the different people and ethnicity that went through that, right? And their ancestors went through that. My heart is with you.
But me and Spoon didn't. We had nothing to do with it.
We had nothing to do with it.
For some reason, white man bad,
And I would never have anything to do with that. And on the social injustice issue, I'm right there with you. It still is a big problem.
It's not a race problem; it's a people problem.
It is.
It's a top-down issue in a lot of ways. People need to start. We need to start calling the real boogeyman out in the room and say, "Look, there's a real boogeyman here."
Because me and you talked about that, where on New Year's Eve, where the man in Ohio was in his backyard, at midnight, shooting his gun up in the air.
Gun up in the air, which is I'm not defending him for being stupid, but he didn't deserve a death sentence. But no BLM rights for that. White cop shooting black guy.
It was a wooden fence where you really couldn't see him. And
cop just shot through the fence and killed the guy.
He unloaded his gun through the fence.
Yeah. It's a horrible thing. To me, it's worse than the Summer of Love incident. To me, oh well, he suffered. They choked him. Okay, whatever. This guy was a lot more. I would have understood the riots a lot more for the Ohio incident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I saying the guy shooting the gun in the air was stupid? Oh, sure. But how many country boys shoot the guns in the air out in our neck of the woods at midnight? A lot.
The only thing he did wrong was he was in the city limits. That's the only thing he did, and that's not a death sentence. And when it comes to the riots, on the things that happens, I understand why they do it. I'm not saying it's right. Some of the things they do, destroying property and all that. But as far as rioting, they have every right to do it. If they're not being heard, it's the same as a protest. All right. If it's a peaceful riot, what they want to call it. Sorry, I was reading a comment.
I'm just picking with you.
I think the big disconnect with the people is it's not actually the people, it's the media and the government. They want to keep everybody fighting. All right.
No, it's divide and conquer. That's their old Roman great game. So.
But the problem in this world we have is it's the people and their heart. All right. Just like this stuff we're talking about on the local level with the mayor or some of the police or some of the council. This is not personal. We have no ill will or hatred towards these people. It's the position they're in that we're talking about.
Again, all the way back to the beginning of the banks and everything. If you were being benevolent and doing the right thing, we would much rather be joking, or making fun of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would just rather not talk about it, but they're not. They're being the POSs that they've all proven themselves.
You, Jamie.
Huh?
My buddy Jamie, he's down there on vacation in the beach too, telling me I need a vacation because I look pale.
Well, you got to get in you've got your Planet Fitness thing, so go hop in the tanning booth.
And then get me a massage.
Oh, yeah. But I guess we're going to end it. Aren't you about ready?
We're fixing to wrap it up. Yeah, I got to work tonight. I need some rest. Don't forget, podcast. We're going to do another next Sunday night. So
Sunday night
time for everybody.
Instead of a coffee cast, it'll be a beer cast. You're going to pick up a bottle of wine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will certainly will. We're going to have at least one, maybe two guests on next Sunday night. We have some big news to bring to you next Sunday night. Big announcement. So I hope y'all tune in. I say next Sunday night, a week from this, will be the 25th, I guess. It's pretty much all I got. I appreciate everybody that supports us or at least tunes in and get your earfuls so you can pass that information on.
You could tune in or watch it later, but I'm just saying, in the end, we need to start trying to turn the boat around. If it's grassroots, local level, moving up, eventually people are going to have to put on their boots and strap it up and go do it.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere, and
I'd much rather talk about the some of your shenanigans or our other crazy shenanigans that are funny, or have joking, wonderful conversations. But the ship's not going to right its wrong until people go there to right it. And there's something called a martyr. A lot of people don't get it, but eventually people are going to have to go do that, and just stand up to the bullies. We'll get you next week, like I said, coffee cast today, and next week we'll have a alcohol cast. Get intoxicated and laugh.
Not intoxicated, but have a little more fun. But we'll have some serious.
We'll loosen up. All right, everybody. I guess we're gonna work on ending it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Real Talk with Spoon and Puddin, episode 8, and we hope to see you next Sunday night.
All right. Later, everybody.